The first thing Anna remembered was the sound, sharp, echoing, and brutally final, the sound of the door slamming behind her father the day he walked out. It carved itself into her memory like a knife dragged across stone, a sound that didn't just end a chapter, but shattered an entire world that an 8-year-old girl had tried desperately to keep intact. The silence that followed felt too heavy for her small shoulders, as though the entire house exhaled for the last time. Even years later, in crowded rooms or noisy buses, Anna could still hear that silence more clearly than anything else. She would carry it with her into adulthood, into every relationship, into every fear, and into every moment she wondered whether she was worth staying for. As Anna grew older, life became a series of quiet compromises. Her mother, exhausted from working 2 jobs and trying to fill the absence that hung over them like a ghost, left her to grow up in the soft but lonely corners of their tiny apartment. Anna learned early how to fold laundry without creasing her mother's stress lines deeper, how to finish her homework without needing help, how to pretend she didn't hear the muffled crying behind the bathroom door. Each small sacrifice formed another brick in the wall around her heart, a wall she would one day struggle to tear down. Yet she also found small refuges, late-night reads with a flashlight, the warm glow of lamplight on winter evenings, and the rare moments when her mother would rest her head on Anna's shoulder, whispering that they would be okay. Those moments grew rarer with time, but they were the threads holding Anna together. High school arrived like a storm she was never taught to prepare for. She learned quickly that loneliness didn't disappear just because the world around her grew louder. She moved quietly, occupying spaces no one else noticed, blending into hallways and classrooms until she felt almost transparent. Teachers praised her for her discipline, unaware that she threw herself into schoolwork because she had nowhere else to put her pain. Friends remained at the edge of her world, near, but never close. Opening up felt like a risk she couldn't afford, because experience had taught her that people who got close eventually left, leaving behind more silence that she didn't know how to fill. But life changed one chilly autumn morning during her first year of college, when Anna discovered the community center. It wasn't anything glamorous, just a small brick building tucked between a laundromat and an old bookstore, but something about it drew her in. Maybe it was the laughter she heard through the open windows, or the soft buzz of conversation that felt warm in a way her life rarely did. Inside, she found a bustling room filled with volunteers sorting donations, children reading quietly, and elderly residents sharing stories over tea. The air felt thick with connection, the kind of connection she had always watched from a distance but never touched. She stood there for several long minutes, unsure whether she belonged, until a gentle-faced woman with silver-streaked hair approached her with a smile that held no judgment at all. The weeks that followed became the beginning of Anna's slow, fragile transformation. She volunteered regularly, helping organize food drives and tutoring younger children. The work wasn't glamorous, nor was it easy, but for the first time, she felt needed. She felt seen. She felt like she had a place where her presence mattered. The people she met there were imperfect but kind, people who carried their own scars but still reached for others' hands. One of them was Miriam, the silver-haired woman, who seemed to sense the wounds Anna tried hard to hide. Without ever prying, without ever pushing, she offered the steady, patient warmth of a maternal figure Anna had spent years yearning for. Still, even as her life began to fill with meaning, the weight of her past clung to her. Some nights, Anna would lie awake staring at the ceiling, her chest tight with the fear that the life she was building could disappear in an instant, the way her father had. She hesitated to grow close to others, terrified of the heartbreak closeness could bring. She rarely spoke about her childhood, about the loneliness, or about the unresolved ache of never knowing why her father walked away. The unspoken things inside her grew heavier with each passing year, quiet but suffocating. The turning point came the night of the winter fundraiser. The community center was glowing with strings of warm yellow lights, music floating gently in the air, and dozens of people gathered with hopeful faces and generous hearts. Anna had worked tirelessly to help organize the event, but as she stood across the room watching families laugh and hold each other, a sudden wave of emotion swept through her. She realized how deeply she longed to feel safe enough to let herself be held like that. The desire was so intense it left her trembling. She rushed outside into the cold night air, tears stinging her eyes, unsure why the happiness around her hurt so much. Miriam found her sitting on the curb, shoulders shaking. She didn't ask what was wrong. She simply placed a warm coat around Anna's shoulders and sat beside her in silence, a silence far different from the one Anna carried inside. This silence was gentle. This silence said, "You don't have to explain anything for me to care." For the first time in years, Anna allowed herself to cry openly, releasing years of buried pain into the quiet winter night. And though she said little, that moment cracked the wall she had spent her entire life building. Over the next few months, Anna slowly learned how to let others in. She formed friendships, not the fragile, surface-level ones she used to keep, but real ones built on vulnerability and trust. She laughed more, breathed deeper, and began to imagine a future where she was not defined by abandonment but by resilience. She even reached out to her mother, trying to rebuild a closeness that had long faded. It was awkward at first, filled with hesitant conversations and long pauses, but they both tried. And sometimes, trying was enough. Then one spring afternoon, when the cherry blossoms were beginning to bloom, Anna received a letter. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the name signed at the bottom stopped her breath. Her father. After more than a decade of silence, he wanted to meet. He wrote that he was sick, that he didn't want to leave the world without giving her an explanation, without apologizing for what he had taken from her life. Anna stared at the letter for hours, torn between fury and longing, between the child who still felt that sharp echoing slam and the woman who craved closure. Meeting him was one of the hardest things she ever did. He looked older, fragile, a shadow of the man she remembered. He apologized, haltingly, imperfectly, and told her about the darkness he had struggled with, the shame that had convinced him she would be better off without him. It didn't erase the pain, but it softened something inside her. Forgiving him didn't mean forgetting what happened, it meant choosing to stop carrying the weight of his choices on her own shoulders. When she walked out of the hospital that day, she felt a quiet strength steadying her heart. Her father passed away 2 months later, but Anna didn't regret seeing him. The goodbye they shared, messy, incomplete, but honest, allowed her to begin living without the echo of his absence haunting every happiness she tried to claim. She returned to the community center with a renewed sense of purpose, devoting herself not just to helping others, but to building a life she no longer felt she needed to apologize for wanting. Years passed gently, and Anna became a pillar of the community. She helped transform the center into a place of hope for countless people who walked in with the same emptiness she once carried. She mentored children who didn't believe in themselves, comforted mothers who felt alone, and listened to stories of heartbreak without turning away. She learned that healing wasn't a destination but a lifelong journey, one walked hand in hand with others brave enough to face their scars. One evening, standing by the window as the sun set in shades of deep gold, Anna realized something she never thought possible. The girl who once felt invisible had grown into a woman capable of lighting up entire rooms. She had broken the cycle of abandonment by choosing connection. She had rewritten the story she once thought she was trapped in. She had given herself the second chance she never received from others. And in that moment, she understood the truth that had taken her years to uncover. Sometimes, the most powerful love is the one you learn to give yourself after surviving all the things that were meant to break you. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps more people find stories of healing, resilience, and quiet courage. Special request before the ending. Comment below what part of Anna's journey resonated with you the most, and why.